Last year alone, Australia recorded one of the highest migration intakes in its history, and now the government says the system is broken. What if the same country that welcomed you is now quietly preparing rules that could force millions to leave? Sounds extreme, right? But behind closed doors, new policies, reviews, and enforcement powers are already being lined up for 2026, and they're far stricter than anything we've seen before. Here's the unsettling part. You don't need to be doing anything illegal to be affected. Students, skilled workers, partners, even long-term temporary residents could suddenly find themselves without a pathway forward. Age limits, English scores, visa caps, and employer rules are all being reworked, and one small change could undo years of effort. So the big question is, are you actually safe under the new system or just assuming you are? Stay with me till the end, because law number 10 is the one almost everyone ignores until it's too late. Number 1. Permanent residency caps tightened. For years, many migrants believed that permanent residency was the natural next step. Study hard, work legally, gain experience, and eventually settle. But that assumption is now being quietly dismantled. Australia is moving towards stricter annual PR caps, meaning the government will deliberately limit how many people can transition from temporary visas to permanent status each year. Even if applications increase, approvals may not. This shift is part of a broader strategy to reduce long-term population pressure, especially in major cities, and it marks a clear change from opportunity-based migration to quota-controlled selection. What makes this especially concerning is that meeting all requirements no longer guarantees success. You could have the right occupation, solid experience, and strong English, and still miss out simply because the yearly cap has been reached. This creates a system where migrants are competing not just on skills, but on timing in policy priorities. International graduates, temporary skilled workers, and even regional visa holders may find themselves stuck in limbo, waiting year after year with no certainty. The emotional toll is huge. People delay families, homes, and long-term plans while hoping their number gets called. So what can you actually do? The most important step is to stop assuming time is on your side. Early planning is no longer optional, it's survival. Migrants need to align their careers with high-priority skills, monitor invitation rounds closely, and avoid relying on backup visas that may disappear. This new PR cap system sends a clear message. Australia still wants migrants, but only a smaller, more targeted group, and everyone else may eventually be asked to leave, even after doing everything right. Number 2. Visa hopping ends. For a long time, Australia's migration system allowed a quiet workaround known as visa hopping, moving from one temporary visa to another just to stay longer. Student visa to graduate visa, then a bridging visa, then another temporary pathway. On paper, it was legal. In reality, the government now sees it as a loophole that has gone too far. By 2026, new rules are expected to sharply limit how many times a person can switch visas while remaining on shore. The message is clear. Temporary visas are meant to be temporary, not stepping stones you can reuse indefinitely. This change hits hard because thousands of migrants are already trapped in this cycle. They're working, paying taxes, following the rules, but without a clear end point. Under the new approach, if your visa pathway doesn't show a direct and genuine progression towards skilled work or permanent residency, it may simply stop. That means fewer onshore applications, tighter refusal rates, and far less flexibility if your first plan doesn't work out. For many, this could mean being told to leave Australia not because they failed, but because the system no longer allows extra chances. The practical lesson here is uncomfortable but crucial. Backup plans are disappearing. Migrants can no longer rely on one more visa to buy time. Every decision, from course selection to job choice, must now point clearly toward a recognized outcome. If your current visa doesn't lead somewhere approved, you may need to rethink early, not later. The era of endless extensions is ending, and those who don't adjust quickly could find themselves with no legal options left, forced to leave despite years of efforts and investment. Number 3. Lower age limits. For years, age was just one factor in Australia's skilled migration system, not a deal breaker, but that balance is shifting fast. By 2026, Australia is expected to lower age limits across multiple skilled visa categories, prioritizing younger workers who can contribute longer to the workforce. From the government's perspective, this is about economic return. Younger migrants statistically work more years, adapt faster, and reduce long-term pressure on healthcare and pensions. For migrants over 40, this change could quietly close doors that once seemed wide open. What makes this rule especially harsh is that experience may no longer outweigh age. A highly skilled professional with 15 or 20 years of expertise could now lose points or be completely excluded simply for being too old under the revised criteria. Many people who spent years gaining Australian work experience, upgrading skills, and improving English may suddenly find themselves age-barred overnight. This is particularly devastating for those who arrived in their mid-30s, believing they had time, only to realize the goalposts have moved. The takeaway here is urgent. Timing matters more than ever. If you're approaching the upper age threshold, waiting could cost you everything. Migrants need to assess their eligibility now, not later, and act before new limits are enforced. Younger applicants, on the other hand, must understand that early career decisions carry long-term consequences. Australia's message is becoming unmistakable. Migration is no longer just about skill, but about how long the system believes you are worth investing in. Number 4. Tougher English rules. English has always been part of Australia's migration process, but until now, it was often seen as a box to tick, not a barrier. That is changing fast. By 2026, English language requirements are expected to become significantly stricter across student, skilled, and even partner visa categories. Higher minimum scores, fewer exemptions, and limited attempts are all being discussed. The government's reasoning is simple. Better English leads to faster workplace integration, higher productivity, and fewer social support costs. But for migrants, this shift could turn a single test result into a make-or-break moment. What makes this rule particularly stressful is how unforgiving it can be. You might be highly skilled, experienced, and already working in Australia, but if your English score falls short by even half a band, your application could be refused. Retaking tests costs money, time, and emotional energy, and repeated attempts don't always guarantee improvement. Many migrants underestimate this risk, assuming their daily use of English is enough. But test-based systems don't measure comfort, they measure precision, and that gap is where many applications fail. The smart move now is to treat English as a long-term strategy, not a last-minute task. Preparing early, choosing the right test, and understanding how scores are calculated can make a real difference. Migrants should aim higher than the minimum, because minimums have a habit of increasing without warning. This rule sends a clear signal. Australia is raising the standard of who gets to stay. And in this new system, fluency isn't just about communication, it's about survival. Number 5. Regional visas expanded. Australia has been pushing regional migration for years, but by 2026, this is expected to become far more aggressive and unavoidable. The government wants to ease pressure on major cities like Sydney and Melbourne by directing migrants into smaller towns and regional areas. As a result, more occupations are likely to be removed from city-based visa pathways and redirected into regional-only options. For many migrants, this means a tough choice: move away from established communities and opportunities or risk losing the chance to stay at all. On paper, regional visas sound attractive: extra points, faster processing, and clearer PR pathways. But the reality is more complex. Regional areas often have limited job mobility, fewer employers, and less access to healthcare, education, and support services. For families, this can be especially challenging. Spouses may struggle to find work, children may face fewer schooling options, and social isolation becomes a real issue. Many migrants accept regional visas as a short-term sacrifice, only to discover they're locked in for years with little flexibility to move. The key lesson here is to research beyond the visa label. Not all regional areas are equal, and choosing the wrong location can stall both your career and your migration progress. Migrants need to evaluate job markets, employer stability, and long-term settlement prospects before committing. The expansion of regional leases makes one thing clear: Australia still needs migrants, but it increasingly wants them where locals don't want to go. Ignoring this shift could mean missing out on future pathways or being forced into decisions you're not prepared for. Before we move on, pause for a second. If this video is answering questions you've been silently worrying about, let us know by dropping a comment with just one word: watching or concerned. We put a huge amount of research and effort into breaking these changes down clearly, so if this is helping you, support the channel by subscribing. It's just one click, and it helps us keep making videos that protect your future. Number 6. Student visas tightened. For many years, Australia's student visa was seen as the safest entry point into the migration system. Study first, work later, then aim for permanent residency. But by 2026, this pathway is being heavily restricted. The government is tightening student visa rules to ensure applicants are genuinely coming to study, not using education as a backdoor to long-term stay. This includes stricter checks on academic background, financial capacity, and most importantly, whether the chosen course actually leads to a skill Australia needs. Degrees that don't align with workforce shortages may no longer justify a visa at all. The biggest change is the stronger enforcement of the genuine student requirement. Immigration officers are expected to closely examine whether your education choice makes sense for your age, past studies, and career history. Switching courses repeatedly, enrolling in low-value programs, or choosing fields with no clear job outcomes can raise red flags. Even students already in Australia may face refusals when extending or changing visas. For many, this is shocking. They followed the rules, paid high fees, and worked legally, yet still risk being told their study path is not credible enough. What this means in practical terms is simple but uncomfortable. Choosing the wrong course can end your migration journey before it starts. Students must now think long-term from day one, not just about education quality, but about employability and migration relevance. Research skills lists, understand post-study work limits, and avoid agents who promise easy pathways. Australia is making it clear that studying alone is no longer enough. If your education doesn't serve the country's needs, the system may no longer serve you. Number 7. Sponsorship crackdowns. Employer sponsorship has long been seen as a lifeline for migrants who miss out on points-based visas. Get a job, get sponsored, stay longer. But by 2026, this pathway is facing intense scrutiny and tighter enforcement. The Australian government is strengthening compliance checks to ensure sponsorships are genuine, fairly paid, and not being used to undercut local workers. While this sounds reasonable, the reality is that migrants are often the ones who suffer when employers fail audits or make administrative mistakes. What makes this rule especially risky is that your visa is tied to someone else's behavior. If an employer underpays, delays paperwork, or breaches sponsorship obligations, even unintentionally, your visa can be canceled with little warning. In some cases, workers discover problems only after immigration steps in. Changing employers under stricter rules may also become harder, leaving migrants trapped between staying in a risky job or losing their legal status. This creates a power imbalance where some workers feel pressured to stay silent just to protect their visa. The smart response is awareness and preparation. Migrants must understand their work rights, salary thresholds, and sponsorship conditions, not blindly trust employers or agents. Keeping records, monitoring payslips, and knowing exit options can make the difference between staying lawful and being forced to leave. This crackdown sends a strong signal. Australia wants skilled migrants, but not at the cost of workplace integrity. In the new system, sponsorship is no longer a safety net. It's a high-stakes agreement where one mistake could end everything. Number 8. Shorter work rights. Post-study work rights have been one of the biggest incentives attracting international students to Australia. The promise was simple: study here, graduate, and gain valuable work experience afterward. But by 2026, this promise is being scaled back sharply. The government plans to reduce post-study work durations, especially for degrees that are not closely aligned with skills shortages. The reasoning is that extended stayback periods encouraged people to remain in Australia without progressing into critical occupations. For many graduates, this change could erase years of carefully planned migration goals. The real shock is how little time graduates may now have. Shorter work rights mean fewer chances to secure a skilled job, gain relevant experience, or convince an employer to sponsor you. In competitive industries, graduates already spend months just getting interviews. With reduced time, pressure skyrockets. Many will be forced into any available job, not strategic ones, just to survive. Once the visa expires, options shrink fast. This doesn't just affect future students. Current students may also feel the impact if transitional arrangements are limited or unclear. The key takeaway is urgency. Graduates can no longer afford to figure things out later. Career planning must start before graduation, not after. Networking early, choosing internships wisely, and targeting industries with real demand is critical. Relying on post-study time to slowly build experience is becoming a risky gamble. This change sends a clear message: Australia wants graduates who move quickly into needed roles, not those who linger. And for anyone counting on extra time after study, that safety buffer may soon disappear completely. Number 9. Family visas slowed. Family migration has always been one of the most emotional parts of Australia's immigration system, but by 2026, it is expected to become slower and more restricted. The government is reviewing partner and parent visa programs to reduce long-term costs and manage population growth. This means tighter caps, longer processing times, and stricter eligibility checks. While skilled migration is being prioritized, family visas are increasingly treated as a secondary concern, leaving many families stuck in years of uncertainty. For migrants already in Australia, this delay can be devastating. Couples may be forced to live apart, or partners may remain on temporary visas with limited work rights for extended periods. Parent visas, already known for extremely long queues, could become even less accessible. This creates emotional stress, financial strain, and difficult personal choices. Many migrants feel they've contributed to Australia's economy, followed every rule, and built stable lives, yet still struggle to reunite with the people closest to them. The system may be legal, but for families, it feels deeply personal. The practical reality is that family migration now requires patience and preparation at a whole new level. Applicants must ensure documentation is flawless, finances are strong, and expectations are realistic. Relying on quick reunification is no longer wise. This shift highlights a harsh truth. Australia's migration focus is becoming increasingly economic, not humanitarian. For those planning to bring loved ones, the message is clear: start early, plan carefully, and prepare for delays. Because under the new system, being skilled and compliant may still not be enough to keep families together quickly. Number 10. Visa cancellations rise. This is the rule that scares people the most, yet almost no one prepares for it. By 2026, Australia is expected to expand its visa monitoring and enforcement powers, leading to a sharp rise in visa cancellations. This doesn't just target serious offenders. Minor breaches, working extra hours, failing to meet visa conditions, overstaying even briefly, or relying on incorrect advice can now trigger serious consequences. With better data sharing and automated checks, the system is becoming faster, stricter, and far less forgiving than before. What makes this especially dangerous is that many cancellations happen without dramatic warning. A letter, an email, or a compliance check can instantly change everything. Some migrants only realize there's a problem when their visa is already canceled. Appeals are stressful, expensive, and not always successful. Worse still, a cancellation can affect future visas, not just in Australia, but in other countries as well. People who believed they were safe suddenly find themselves facing detention, removal, or long-term bans, often over mistakes they didn't even know they made. The most important takeaway is awareness and discipline. Migrants must understand every condition attached to their visa and stop relying on social media advice or hearsay. Keep records, check updates regularly, and act immediately if something feels unclear. In this new environment, ignorance is no longer excusable in the eyes of the system. Australia isn't just changing who it lets in, it's changing how strictly it watches those already inside. And for millions, this final rule could be the one that determines whether they stay or are asked to leave.
Australia's immigration system is clearly entering a new era, and whether these changes feel fair or frightening, one thing is undeniable: ignoring them is no longer an option. The rules are becoming stricter, faster, and far less forgiving, especially for those living on temporary visas. Currently in Australia, we're planning to move here. The biggest risk right now isn't rejection, it's assumption. Assuming your age won't matter, assuming your English is good enough, assuming you'll always have one more visa. The people most affected by future immigration laws are often the ones who thought they were safe. Preparation, awareness, and early action are no longer optional, they're essential. Now I want to hear from you. Which law shocked you the most, and why? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because your situation might help someone else watching this video right now. And if this content helped you understand what's coming, please support us. These videos take serious research and effort to create. Subscribe to the channel. It's just one click, and it helps us keep bringing you clear, honest immigration updates that actually matter.